Will come to order. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing on the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, a game-changing bipartisan piece of legislation that has provided life-saving assistance to women across America for nearly 3 decades. I'd like to start things off with a video that provides an overview of the legacy of this law.
I was a shelter director in North Florida in 1993 when Congress was debating the Violence Against Women Act. And I remember standing in this shelter and thinking to myself, after the Violence Against Women Act passes, this will all change. And indeed, it has.
The original 1994 law provided grants for legal aid and transitional housing for victims of domestic violence. It also created funding for law enforcement training and assistance hotlines.
First passed in 1994 after intense lobbying from women who had few legal protections and few resources against domestic and sexual violence. The bill is said to have decreased domestic violence for women by 70%, and it's bipartisan.
VAWA has been instrumental in safeguarding women and children from abuse, anguish, violence, and has resulted in the saving of millions of lives.
Nothing could be more related to the administration of justice than the Violence Against Women Act. Judges across the country are enlightened and prepared to deal with domestic violence.
And you can directly connect that to this law?
We've seen almost a 50% increase in reporting. More victims reaching out. They're calling the police, they know their service is available, and they're getting help.
Why now? Is there something you sense in this moment, in the midst of the pandemic?
Laws have to evolve.
We have made enormous progress in this country in addressing domestic violence. We have seen decreases of about 2/3 in the last 25 to 30 years. But as you point out, we're starting to see an increase again.
92% of women murdered in 2018 were killed by men they knew.
COVID-19 has only made the issue worse.
1 in 3 women have experienced either physical and/or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence.
The bill is passed.
For more than 30 years, October has been recognized as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's a reminder that all of us have an obligation to stand up and support survivors of sexual and domestic violence, many of whom had to nurse their wounds, both physical and emotional, in silence. And over the past 18 months, many survivors have been forced into the most vulnerable position of all, isolated at home with an abuser. During this pandemic, nearly 4 in 10 rape crisis centers and nearly half of the YMCA's domestic violence programs have reported an increase in demand for services. Police departments throughout the country have also reported a spike in arrests and calls related to domestic violence. In my home state of Illinois, our domestic violence hotline experienced a 16% increase in calls in 2020, sometimes fielding 150 calls in a single day. A friend of mine and vocal advocate for survivors of domestic violence, the late Sheila Wellstone, used to say, and I quote her, "I find it absolutely intolerable to think that a woman's home can be the most violent, most dangerous, and oftentimes the most deadly place she can be." This is unacceptable reality for far too many women in America. And that's why the Senate must reauthorize and strengthen the law that for nearly 30 years has transformed the way we address sexual and domestic violence in America, the Violence Against Women Act. In the years since it was first signed into law, VAWA, as it's often referred to, has changed and even saved countless lives. It has opened up new avenues of support and relief for survivors, including domestic abuse hotlines. It has helped establish protocols for doctors, police officers, judges, and others to spot the subtle signs of domestic violence and to provide help once they observe those signs. And it has funded resources that allow victims to escape abusive environments. Unfortunately, in the last Congress, the Senate failed to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act. While appropriations to VAWA programs have continued, which is good news, much needed efforts to improve the law stalled. Thankfully, in this Congress, there is a strong bipartisan commitment to join our colleagues in the House and pass VAWA of 2021. Today, the committee will have a chance to hear from the junior senator from Iowa, Senator Ernst. She's been working closely with Senator Feinstein and me to prepare the Senate's own version of the VAWA Reauthorization Act of 2021 for introduction. Senator Ernst, thank you so much. We'll also hear from Senators Leahy, Hyde-Smith, and Capito. We're then going to have a chance to hear from the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, a law enforcement leader who has voiced strong support for this legislation as well. I had a conversation on the phone last night with Lisa, and she mentioned that she started her career on the Hill as an intern in this committee, working on the original VAWA. It inspired her to go to law school and to embark on a career of public service, which has been remarkable. So Lisa, I'm glad you're back home again. I want to personally thank Senators Ernst and Feinstein for their tireless efforts. Senator Feinstein, because of a serious illness in the family, could not join us this morning, but she is here in spirit, and we salute all of her leadership. A number of our colleagues on this measure have included Senator Leahy, who we expect to be here momentarily and make a statement, and Senator Amy Klobuchar, who has also been an invaluable contributor to this effort. I'm grateful for the shared commitment to produce a strong bipartisan bill. In March, the House once again passed a VAWA reauthorization with strong bipartisan support from the indomitable Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, House Judiciary Committee Chair Nadler, and Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick. Like the House-passed bill, our legislation will modernize and improve this vital law, and it won't roll back the progress that we've made. This new version of Violence Against Women Act will not only provide funding to organizations and resources that support survivors, it will invest in critical prevention and education. It will improve access to services for survivors in rural areas and those who require culturally specific services. It will enhance protections for Native American women and children. It will help keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of abusers, and it will provide survivors with the support they need by expanding access to legal services and other crucial programs. And once we join the House in passing this legislation, we know we're going to send it to the desk of a leader who is sympathetic, not just sympathetic, but wildly supportive of this measure. The man who originally sponsored the first Violence Against Women Act, President Joe Biden. I can think of no better way for us to do our part in honoring Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Now I turn to Ranking Member Grassley.